Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining in today's live programming session, which is our first programming session. Just I think we can get started now. Get okay, programming sessions that we always have. Um, the edge how we've gone in terms of building the good guidance and the steps development at the moment. They and they're supposed to be more engaging. So sessions, they are there to just guide you and lay foundation for you to get started in terms of web development. And soon we'll be moving into mobile app development, right? Along, pay attention, like take down. But if you can't manage, it's fine. As that we'll be looking at how we can add images to our website. Try that on your own, right? It's it's more important for you to do stuff on your own to the point where you get to be practical, where you get to watching someone write code, when you're watching tutorials, you need to now get the skill set and really understand the concepts and just go through it and have that experience with the code. You need to do it on your own. So it's important. I'll be able to answer your questions if I can, and maybe provide resources that will help you understand and just be able to solve those questions that you have. Okay, so when you go through these sessions, when you have the session on your own, okay, that's where the learning be confident. Encounter a blockage, right? Or a friend, put that out there so that okay, all right. Francis is suggesting that we use the light theme for. I don't know if this helps, though it's reflecting a lot of light on my face. But yeah, I don't know. Let me know if this is better or we can just keep the same one that we had. Okay? Just let me know if this is better, if you're able to see the code now clearly. Or maybe I can try to find a better white theme. Okay? So just let me know if you guys are able to see um, the code properly. Okay, so this is the HTML. Okay, all right. I think we can keep this one. So if you guys are unable to see the code, um, if you're unable to see the code, just let me know. We can switch to a different theme that will just help you see the code properly. Okay. Um, Let me just check on my phone to see if that is better or we have to change it. Okay. I think this is better. I think we're able to see the code. Yeah, on my end, I think I'm able to see the code. Um, if at any point, you know, you're not able to see that properly, just let me know. Okay, so let's get started. Last time we ended on the main body. Okay, so we ended by looking at the main section of our website, right? So let me just open that. Okay, so there are different ways of viewing your website when you're developing it. Okay, VS Code offers us some extensions that can help you create like a local server where you're able to see the live changes as you change your website, like changing the content of your website, whether it be text, images, you're able to see the live changes without you. refreshing the browser. Okay, so there is one extension in VS Code. It's called Lifesaver. Okay, you can just find it here. Okay, so inside your VS Code, when you go on your left side, this side, okay, there is this left bar on extension. Okay, so when you go on extensions, just search for Lifesaver, Lifesaver, like that. Okay, Lifesaver. So you find like that there are like different savers here. Mine is this one, I think. Yeah, this is the one that I'm using. Okay, this is the one that I'm using from Retweak. Yeah, so this is the one that I'm using. So once you install it, mine is already installed. Okay? That's why you are seeing this uninstall. Mine is already installed, so you can just install that if you want to use it. Okay. So now the way you open it, since this is our index.html, that's like the root file for our website. That's the entry file for our website. Okay. So we can right click there and just click on open with Lifesaver there. Okay. Or at the bottom here in VS Code, there is this tab, okay, which says Go Live. So when you click on Go Live, you open the website. Okay, so we just click here, right? Okay, so it's starting. At the bottom here, you can see starting. Once it starts, we're able to go, we're able to see the port number, right? That, okay. So it has opened on this side. Let me just bring it here, okay. There, okay. So this is our website. This is how far we've gone with our website. Let me just reduce the font to the actual and reset. Okay, this is the correct zoom. Okay, so this is what we've done so far in terms of us creating a clone for Google. Okay, I'll go to the actual website for Google. Okay, this is the original website for Google. I'm sure you're able to see we have the input, we have the logo there, okay? We have those buttons and the text and everything that's supposed to be on the Google website. Then this is our website, the one that we're trying to create. Okay? So the last time, what we did is we just created that effect, right? So when you bring your cursor on the input there, you'll be able to see that shadow behind, okay? Box shadow, okay? So today what we are going to focus on is adding these two buttons and this text. If we have enough time, we'll go to the footer because we are almost done. We're just remaining with the content on the main section and also the footer, right? Excuse me. Okay, so let's do that. All right, let's do that. Okay, so I'll go to the code, right? So just a quick recap before we add any code um, to our index.html, right? So we said that in HTML, right? I think I'll keep on repeating this. So HTML helps us create a structure for our website, right? It doesn't add colors, it doesn't explain how you can align your items, which position you can put your items and all that, but it just creates that foundation, that structure for us to lay out our content on the page. Okay. And the proper structure for HTML, right? Sometimes developers or programmers refer to it as the boilerplate. Boilerplate is like the general structure for our HTML code, right? So what you're going to find in that structure is one, you have this doc type HTML, then you have the HTML tag, followed by the head, right? So there are different HTML element tags that go inside the head, which we'll continue discussing. Then you also have the body. The body is like the main tag because everything that you see on a website goes inside the body. So if you want to add an image on your website, you have to add it inside the body. If you want to add a paragraph, a video, whatever content you want to your viewers or your customers or anyone that you are creating the website for, it has to go inside the body. Okay. Then we also discussed some unique HTML elements which are called semantic HTML elements, right? They are more descriptive. They explain basically what's supposed to go inside those elements, right? So, for example, we have the header. So any content, right? The content that we want to be on top of our website, the header, whether it be the navigation bar, it has to go inside this element. Okay. Then the main, that's where now the main body, right? The content, that's like the main content of the page goes inside the main element. Then everything that's at the bottom goes inside the footer. Okay, goes inside the footer. All right. So let's focus on the main because that's where we are right now. Remember, we added an image here, right? That's the Google logo. That's the image that we added. Then we have this input. So the input is what now captures the search that we want to implement, right? So when you go on Google and you want to search for something, you always type what you want to search, right? So when you click enter, you're sending a request to the Google servers, right? Then you get a response back. We're not going to look at the back end, the server side at the moment. We're just looking at the front end, right? So this input is what we use to capture the what's this, the search, okay, or the string that the user wants to search for. Okay, so this is this. Then when we go now to the original website for Google, we'll notice that what we want to put are these two buttons. Okay, so what we are going to do is that we'll create a separate section for this so that we just have two buttons in that div. Okay, then we'll also create another one where we have these links. Okay, so this is it. This is text. Then we have those four links. Okay, so we have two buttons and we have this text and those four links. So let's first add the buttons. So how do we add a button in HTML? Okay, so remember I said we'll create a separate div, more of a section, right? So a div is like a container. It just helps us divide our content, right? So the word div itself, div, comes from the word division, right? So it's like dividing the different sections. So here we just create a div tag like that. So we have an open tag and a closing tag, right? So inside there, that's where we now create our button. Okay, so create a button like that. Okay, so even with the buttons, you have an open tag and a closing tag. And remember, the difference between an open tag and a closing tag is a forward slash. Okay, so inside these buttons, the open and the closing tag, that's where you put the content, right, of the button. So what's the content? When you go on the page, you'll be able to see Google search. Okay? That's what goes inside the button. Okay, okay. So there I'll say Google search like that. Okay, what's the next button? So we have another button again. If you want, you can copy this one, or you can just start from scratch and just create a tag for the button. Okay, so inside this button, what we are going to put is this content. I'm feeling lucky, right? So that's lucky. Yeah, so that's what we are going to put like that. Okay, there, right? Okay, so here we'll create a class, right? So now a class is an attribute, okay? So every HTML element has got what we call attributes, okay? So an attribute is basically an element, okay, that adds more information to our HTML tag. So I'll give you an example of an example of an attribute. Okay, so when you look at this image here, right, it has this text, an equal sign, then double quotes. Then in the double quotes, you have that string, right? So the src is the attribute. Okay, so the src is short for source, right? So our image tag needs a source where the image is, right? So we use the src, which is the source attribute, and now inside there, that's where we point to where the image is so that we can show our image on our website. So that is an attribute. Then another attribute that an image has is an attribute called auth. Okay, it's short for alternative. So there are cases where, let's say, our image is not in the location that we specified. Okay, so it means it won't show on the website, right? So if it doesn't show on the website, or if the image is broken, it will show the text that is inside the ALT attribute or the alt attribute. Okay, so here you can just say Google logo, right? Like that. Now let's try something. So here, if let's say I put two forward slash like that, okay, or I even do that, right? So that's not a proper path for a logo. So it means that this logo won't show on our website, right? So if I go on our website, okay, this is the original website for Google. When you go on this one, you won't be able to see the image there, but you're able to see the text, right? So why are we seeing the text? The text helps us to understand what the image was about. So this was a Google logo, right? So now, because the image, we've pointed it to the wrong path, right? It's able to give us the text, which is the auth, right? The one in the auth attribute, okay? So let's now just put that back the way it's supposed to be. Then when we check on our website, we are now able to see the image. And are you seeing that we're not refreshing the page, right? We're not refreshing the page. So the reason why we're not refreshing the page is because of the same extension that I mentioned about, which is the lifesaver. Okay. So every change we make goes live. So I don't know if you noticed, even the buttons are now there. So these are the buttons, right? But they're not looking like the ones on Google. We want them to be like these ones. Okay. We want them to be like, hey. Okay. So what we are now going to do here is, um, I know the background text of the buttons um, is a bit gray, like it's light gray, right? You can't see that much, but it's light gray. You're able to see a slight contrast or difference between the background color of the button and of the page itself, right? So we want to capture that gray, we want to have that gray color, okay? So one of the things that I use for me when I'm trying to maybe like pick colors on a page, I have this plugin, right? This is like an extension or a plugin. Yeah, an extension for Google Chrome. Yeah, so if you're using Google Chrome, you can actually like install different plugins, okay, or extensions. Yeah, so the one that I use is this one. It's called OpenCC Checker, right? It helps you pick like different colors on pages. So if I click it like that, it's able to show me like the different colors that I pick, right? So I want to pick this color here. So what you do is you just click on there, then you can, like, you can pick any color you want. So if I want blue, I can just pick that. Okay. If I want like maybe it's a green, I can pick the green like that. But what I want is this gray color on the text, right? So I have to make sure it's on the correct. I don't know. It's not pointing to the light text. Um, Let me see. Yeah, that one. Okay. So this is like the light gray color that I wanted. Okay? So I just grab that color, copied it. Okay. Now I can use it as a background color for these buttons. Okay. So what I'm going to do is that we're going to go to our VS Code. Okay. Now remember, I was explaining about attributes, right? So a class is an attribute that helps us make changes to our HTML inside the CSS. Okay. So I'm going to repeat that. So a class is an attribute that you add to any, you can add it to any HTML element. Okay. So the purpose of this class is to just help us connect our HTML and our CSS so that we can make the changes that we want. Because remember, we said HTML just helps us create a structure, right? But then the CSS is the one now that comes to style our page, right? So that's what we want. We want to style our buttons, right? So what do? We add a class, or we can add an ID. So you can add an ID. An ID is another attribute, right? An ID like that. But for now, we just stick with classes. So stick with the class, then we say BTNS. Okay. Okay. There was a breakdown of the network. I hope you guys are now able to hear me. Okay. All right. Let me just continue. Okay. So what I was explaining is that um, whenever we want to connect our CSS to our HTML, we use this tag. Okay. This is the tag that we use. This tag has two attributes. It has called rel and href. The rel, the content that goes there is style sheet because we are pointing to a style sheet. CSS is a style sheet, right? Cascading style sheet. Then the href points to the path, okay, that takes us to the actual file, right? So this is the path, a folder, then the file, right? So this is the folder, okay? Inside this folder, that's where we have this file. Okay? So that's how we connect our CSS to our HTML, okay? So now, because we want to style this button, what we do is we go to this class, okay? So this is the text that we use, btns. Remember this btns for button, right? So when you go in our CSS, the way we call a class is we write a dot. If you are calling an ID, you use a hash tag, but we are using a dot. Then you say btns like that. So here, what you've done is that you've tapped into this um, HTML element, and you can now make changes to this button. Okay, so here what you do is now you point to the button, okay, because you want to make changes to the button. Then you use those curly brackets. Okay, so inside those curly brackets, remember what we want to change is the background color, right? The background color. So here you say background color. Then you paste the background color. This is the color that we got, right? This is the color that we got. Then you can save the work. Once we save the work and go to our website, you're able to see that the color has changed, right? It's not that visible because there isn't enough space between, inside the buttons, right? So we need to create some spaces because if you check here, there's spaces around, right? So we need to do that. And if you see, our buttons have got a border, right? Like a black border, solid border. We need to remove that as well and also increase the spaces, okay? So let's do that, okay? So how do we do that? We remove the border. Remember, we want to remove the border. So we say border, then you say none, okay? So when you say border and none, you remove the border. If you want to have a border, you can specify like the thickness, okay? Or the width of the border. You can say maybe it's 2 pixels, okay? PX stands for pixels, okay? So those are just units for the thickness or the width of the border itself. So you can say 2 pixels solid, okay? Solid is like a style. So the border can be like a solid border. It can be dotted like that. So you have different styles that you can use. You can either use dotted as well, like that, right? Dotted. Then you specify the color. Let's say we say gray, right? Like that. So when you go to the page, you'll be able to see that you have got that border which is dotted, right? Yeah. But that's not what we want. What we want is to remove the border completely. So you just say none. Okay. And when you go on the website, you'll be able to see that we've successfully removed the border. The border is no longer there, right? Now the other thing that you notice is that when we bring our cursor, right, on the button for the official website for Google, you're able to see that the cursor changes into a hand, right? Okay, so how can we achieve that? Because ours doesn't change. So what you do is you type cursor, right? Okay, all right. I hope you guys are still able to hear me. Okay, all right. So let's continue. Okay, so we now have that cursor, right? It's now changing. Okay, it's now changing. So immediately we bring our cursor there, you're able to see the change. Okay, you're able to see the change. Right. So now we need to create some spaces. If you check the spaces inside the button, they've got enough space for the text and the button itself, right? So the space inside the buttons or any object, okay, is called padding. So padding is the space between the content and the border, okay? So between the content and the border, okay, that is called padding. But the space between the border and the outside is called margin, okay? So we need to remember those two because you use them a lot, okay, to just create space between elements and among elements on your page, okay? So you need to remember padding is the space between your content and the border, right? So the space between the border and the content. But the space outside the border is called margin. Okay, so here what we want is to create space inside the button itself. So we say padding. Okay, so for starters, just put padding of 10 pixels and see how that will come out. Okay, there, you've seen. So we've created some spaces, right? You're not you're not fully able to see like the whole space, okay? Because for once, the buttons are near the input. So we want to create some spaces because if you check uh, for the Google website, you've got space between this input and these buttons, okay? So we can create that. Now, remember what I said. The space between the border and the outside is called margin. So this time we're not applying padding, but we're applying margin. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so what we're going to do to the buttons, okay, to the buttons, we won't apply the margin directly to each button, okay, because what we are doing here is that these changes we're applying them to each button. Okay, so but we have this class, okay, this whole div, this class. Okay, so the class btns, when we apply the margin on top, right? The margin top, it will create space between that section and the input section. Okay, so we'll go inside our CSS and create a separate btns. Okay, then now we can apply the margin top. Okay, so margin top, let's say we put 20 pixel, right? And just check how that comes out. Okay, there you see. So we've created a bit of space there. Okay, all right. So I think maybe we can apply more. There's enough space here, so let's add more space there. Okay, maybe 30 pixels. Okay, yeah, there. Okay, so we've created that space. Now, the other thing that you notice is when we bring our cursor on these buttons, right? You're able to see that whenever we bring the cursor, there is a border, right? Around like a gray border with like some box shadow, like some shadow that comes here, right? Yeah, we have that border like gray and some shadow, right? So that's what we want to do. Okay, but that only happens when we bring the cursor there, right? But as it is, you are not able to see that border. Okay, let me just go back to the website. The way it's looking right now, you are unable to see the border, but the moment you bring the cursor, that's when we bring the border. Okay, so the way we're going to achieve that is you still target the same buttons. Okay, say button like that. Okay, now this time we are applying the hover effect, okay, like that. So for us to apply that hover effect, you put a full colony between the border and the text itself, okay, the hover. So inside here, whatever properties you put, whatever changes you make, will only be effective when you bring the cursor on that button, okay? Because the process of you bringing the cursor on the button is called hovering, right? Yeah. So what do we want to do? We want to add a border whenever someone brings the cursor on the button, okay? So remember what I said, you say you have to first put border because what we are trying to affect is the border. Okay, so here that's why you now write 1 pixel. What's the 1 pixel for? It's the width. Okay, so this is for the width or the thickness of the border. So you start with 1 pixel. If it's too small or it's too thin, then we'll increase it to 2 pixels. Then second is the style. Now when you go on the website for Google, okay, you see that it's a solid border. It's not dotted, right? It's a solid border. Okay, it's a solid border. So here what you say is solid. Then remember the color is what? Gray. Now the actual gray, like the original gray color without any shades or contrast, it's a bit dark, right? So when you bring your cursor, if you're in VS Code, if you're using VS Code and you bring your your cursor there, okay, you bring your cursor there, this prompt comes up, right? And you'll be able to see these two different bars here, right? So now the second one that shows the actual color, the gray color, that's the one that we're going to use to reduce that contrast, okay? So I'm going to reduce it a bit so that it's not that dark, excuse me. So it's not that dark, okay? Reduce it like that, okay? There, okay? I think That's enough for now. So we've added a 1 pixel solid border, right? So now let's check it out. Okay, so we'll go on our website and we try to bring the cursor and you're able to see that. Okay, now I'm sure you've noticed something, right? When you go on the uh, original website for Google and we bring our cursor, right? There. It's only the border that's showing, but nothing else is moving. But for our website, when we bring the cursor on those buttons, you'll be able to see that this part is moving, right? So why is it that like that? It's because the original width of the border is 0, right? So the moment we bring our cursor there, we are increasing it to 1. So we're adding space and moving the other items, right? And the moment we remove the cursor, we're reducing the border width to 0. So it moves back to 0 again, right? So when you do that, you've seen that? So now what's the solution? So what we are going to do is this. We'll go back to the initial point where we had said border is none, right? So what we are going to do here is we are going to specify that the border is 1 pixel, okay? 1 pixel, like that. Then we can put whatever style we want. Solid, we even put gray, okay? Now, I'm sure you're asking, isn't that going to show the gray? You are right, it's going to show. So if I save it like that and go on the website, we're able to see that gray, you see? Then when we bring the cursor, that's when it's showing us that gray color, right? So now what's the solution? So what you do now is you completely reduce the opacity of this gray, okay? You completely reduce it to 0 so that it becomes transparent, okay? So when we save, okay, and go to the website, it's now transparent. But when we bring the cursor now, nothing else moves, okay? Nothing else moves, but that hover effect is now properly working, right? So that's what we can do there. Now the other thing that you notice is when we go to the original website, okay? When we go to the original website for Google, one thing that you notice is that on the edges for the buttons, right? It's a bit curved like this. Okay, it's not completely like 90 degrees, right? It's like a bit curved. So that corner is called border radius. Okay, that's the border radius of the button. So we can actually change the border radius instead of it being completely square like this, where it has a right angle 90 degrees. We can change it. Okay, so we'll go to the buttons here, not here, because remember, whatever we add inside here only gets to show up when we bring the case on the button. So we go to the actual button, right? So there, that's where we write border radius like that. Okay. So border radius will now start with 5 pixels. Let's apply 5 pixels. So these units that I'm adding, like 5 pixel, 10 pixel, it's not that I know the exact units, right? But it's because I've played around a lot with these border radius and stuff like that with the units so much that I notice, okay, if I put 5 pixels, it will be a bit like this, like okay, the curve would be like this. Then I just adjust them, right? So that's the essence again, the importance of what I was saying to say you have to be practical about these lessons. When you watch these sessions like this, don't just rest and say I've watched, I've understood, but take time to just practice on your own so that you play around with them, you experiment, you see how these units work. Why am I using a 5? Maybe you use a 10 on your rows when you use a 20 or a 1 or a 2, right? So for now, I've put a 5 there. So let's see what happens. Okay. So there, you see, we now have that a border radius, okay, like it is here. Okay, so here it's a bit curved, right? Ours is more, so we can even go to like 4 if you want to leave it at 5. So let's try 4. Okay? Let's try 4. Okay, yeah, I think 4 is better. Okay, so there it is. Okay, so we have those two buttons, and these are for the original website. Okay, these are for the original website. So I think with the buttons, the only thing remaining is a border shadow. There's like a shadow beneath, right? There's like a shadow there. So what we can do is, remember we had created the shadow for the input, right? We had created the shadow for the input. Sorry, I'm just checking the comments in case there is something that I need to respond to. Okay, yeah. So now remember that we had already created the border shadow, which is here, right? So instead of us writing from scratch, we can just get the same border shadow, okay, and apply it to the hover effect, right? But uh, okay, before I make any changes, let's see what that does to our buttons, right? So let me now see on the website. Okay, so this is our original website. So when you bring the cursor, you see you are able to see now that that shadow, right? But it's too much. It's a lot. On the original one, there isn't that much of a border shadow, right? So the number that you get to affect is this one. Okay, so let's put maybe a 2 there. Okay, save the web. Okay, our website like that. Okay, even a 1 because it's I think it's still too much. Still too much. The one we even reduced the opacity a bit like that. Okay, right. So there it is, right there. Okay, yeah. I think we can leave it at that. Okay, so we have managed to add those two buttons. Okay, so now the other part that we're going to change is this part. Okay, this part. So that's another section again. It's a different section that has got text or languages, right? These are languages. Yeah, so we're going to create a separate div for that. Okay, so we'll go now to our HTML, which is the foundation, like our structure, right? So every time we're trying to create a structure, we always go to HTML. And when we want to store this structure, we go to our CSS, right? So here, what we're going to do is create a div like that. Okay, a div. Then inside here, we'll create a class. Okay, so this time we'll name it languages. Okay, okay, languages. I don't think there's an A here. Okay, I'm not sure if this is the correct thing. Languages. Okay, you guys correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes these words, yeah. So languages. Okay, yeah. So inside this, so inside the, I think there is an A here. Okay, now I'm feeling like I have to Google this word. Okay, so language. You just say language. Okay, then you save it. So inside this div, okay. So inside this div, we are now supposed to add the text, this text. Okay, so we have this paragraph. It's a paragraph. Okay, it's a paragraph. We can use a paragraph to come up with this text, but these are links. Okay, oh, I've just changed the language. Okay, just click there. Okay, so these are links. Okay, so these are links, and this is a paragraph. So inside the div, what we can now do is that we can add. Okay, let me do that. Okay, we can add a paragraph like that. Okay, then we type this word Google offered in. Okay, so we can just type that Google offered in with a full colon like that. So we've written the paragraph, but the other ones are links. Okay, these are links. Chewa, Chiremba, Tumbuka, and Lozi. These are links. So we have 4 of them, right? So the way you create a link is we use the anchor tag, right? Which is a anchor tag, right? Then you add an attribute of href. So the href just points to the path, okay, of the link itself. So for now, because we are not changing from one page to another, what we do is we just put a hash there, then we close it like that, right? Then there we can now put, I think, what's the first one? Okay, shower, right? Yeah, shower like that. Okay, so I can just copy the same one 3 times. Okay, then we write the other ones. Okay, Shiremba, Bemba, Bemba. Okay, so sure is this Shiremba. Okay, I think this one, the last one is Lozi. Okay, then this one is Tumbuka. Okay, so this is Tumbuka like that. Okay, all right. So we've written our structure, we've put our structure. Now let's see how it looks like. Okay, so when we go on our website, this is how it looks like. Okay, the Google offered in is separate from these links. Okay, it's separate from these links. So now the question is, why are they separate, right? Why are they separate? If you remember from our previous sessions, if you remember from our previous sessions, okay, just a minute. I want to check if you guys are able to hear me. So just let me know if you're able to hear me. I don't want to continue explaining meanwhile you can't get what I'm saying. Okay, so if you're able to hear me, just let me know in the comment section. Okay. Okay. All right, then you can continue. Okay, so the two, okay, these two sections, okay. If you remember from our previous sessions, I mentioned that in HTML there are what we call inline elements and block elements. Okay, so with inline elements, they stack themselves next to each other because they only occupy the space that they need. Okay, so these links or anchor tags, they are inline elements, so they are stacking themselves next to each other like that. Okay, but with the paragraph, it's a block element, so it's occupying the whole block and pushing the other content below it. Okay, so now what do we do? So there's an element, so this is what we're going to look at. Okay, so what we can actually do just from here by seeing this, okay, by seeing this, we can actually um, go to our CSS, right? Now remember, this is the section that we're dealing with, okay? This is the section that we're dealing with. So now, what we can do if we look at, I want to check something. If we look at the Google website, okay, they are all in the same line. You've seen that? That's what we want to do with our website. So what you do is you target the language class, okay? So we target that language class, okay? And where do we go? To our CSS, because our CSS is the one that helps us style the page, okay? So we now call that class, okay? Then those curly brackets. So inside the curly brackets, that's where we put now the property and the value that we want to change. So the property that helps us remove that block element or convert it into an inline element is the display property with a value of flex. Okay. So when you change the display to flex, it converts the elements or the HTML elements, excuse, into inline elements, from block elements to inline elements. Okay. So now when we go on our website, you're able to see that they are now in the same line, right? But one is like on top here like that, the other one is like here. So we need to put them in the same line like that. Okay. So there are properties that we can use for that. Okay. So there's one property called justify content. Okay. So say center, right? So now justify content affects the element horizontally. Okay. Horizontally like that. Okay. It affects the element horizontally like that. Then there's another one called align items. Okay, align items affects the element in terms of the vertical. Okay, so let me not add anything. Let's check that. Okay, okay. So you've seen that. So it's now at the center in terms of horizontally, right? So the other way that you can be checking how these items are being affected, okay, sometimes it's not that you've not applied that at justify content or align items, right? So what you can do is, what I did is, you can like click on your page, then you click on inspect, okay, inspect like that, okay, then you click this so that you're able to just observe this link, okay. Now, one thing that you notice about this paragraph and the link is that for the links, for the anchor tag, it's like they have spaces beneath them, right? Then for the paragraph, it has got some padding also. So if we are able to remove the padding from the paragraph and also the space that's under the anchor tag, then we'll be able to just put them together like that. So if you want to check where you had applied the padding, you can come here, okay? Then you check this side, okay? So if you check here, right, there's nothing, right? There's nothing like that for padding and all that thing for this, right? So we can leave it there. But